Hey everyone, it's your boy Matt. This is just a combination of a personal update and Taco admin for the bloody 22nd of December 2025. This one's probably going to be in two cuts because I need to check out some information in between. But look, I'm very much being pressured into returning to work and doing psychology stuff again. I don't want to do it. I really don't. I want to get the money from my work. I want to be able to sell my work. I really want to be done with the power relationships in workplaces. And more than anything, I want my freedom and independence. That's what I've been working for this entire time. My plan was to just do my 2 years in the 4+2 and then fuck off to fucking, I don't know, Malaysia or someplace and start just living sort of a digital nomad lifestyle. That's what I wanted. I now have this thing which really should work the same. I want to do that instead. Um, it's not that I don't like psychology, it's that I don't want to be forced into working and having to deal with all the problems that a person in my situation, who is as famous and infamous as I am, has to deal with. And I don't want to deal with the internal politics of psychology. It's just I've just had enough of the people in it. I really have. Um, it's not to say some psychologists aren't great people. It's to say that the politics and the discipline's just too much. It's a lot of really self-important, very special people, um, and it's not fun having to deal with. Speaking of which, I still do not know my legal situation, so I can't make decisions, and that is terrible. I think what this was a maneuver by a woman called Sarah Samuel, who was trying to keep me in a box as much as possible. She has this, I don't know, like she is the most mediocre person I've ever met. I've never met like she we were doing this incredibly difficult, morally complex work. We were dealing with some pretty terrible situations, and I have this woman who will just fucking cut my throat and betray me at the drop of a hat. Um, that's not the kind of person you can work with doing that work. She is. She reminded me of the descriptions. There was this lieutenant. I'll check out his name. Give me a second. Yeah, getting back to the rant. So she reminds me so much of this bloke called Lieutenant William Kelly, and he's the guy who sort of orchestrated a terrible event called the My Massacre, which was a thing in Vietnam where there was just this really incompetent manager, and what happened is they ended up giving orders to wipe out an entire village of just random people. Um, because the person wanted to be in the good graces of his leadership, and he was just completely and fucking competent. And what will happen is that in the NDIS, you're dealing with these very morally complex situations, and you're dealing with people who are breaking down and having to deal with the psychological impact of that. And remembering what my career has been to how I got the skills I have, I know what good looks like in leadership in the NDIS. I know what pathetic looks like, and Sarah Samuels are towards that pathetic end. You can't have people who are these weak-skinned, um, morally uncourageous hacks in leadership. And the worst thing is that, like, okay, I'll tell you why I really hate this person. It's because they're the reason why I don't have rights at all. Like, why I don't know like, I'm not aware of my legal situation. Because I wrote a note to her asking for a different intervention because I realized what a complete fucking hack she was and the cowardice of all the people in my management and around me, that what was going to happen is that eventually there was going to be a false allegation made and I needed to be able to record my sessions, and I wanted those session recordings held by a third party, and when inevitable kind of allegations were going to be made, because over a long enough career you were going to fucking cop a false allegation if you're dealing with this population of people, that I wouldn't want to be notified about it unless there was like a thing where it's just like, hey, we need to ask you questions, right? It was never a case of me surrendering my rights to access to legal representation or knowing what my legal case would be. Never. But I'm dealing with these people who lack self-awareness regarding their own motives and their own ability. And I've had this person steal all my rights. This is a situation where, like, you know, the action by the community is needed to resolve it. Like, this woman needs to face consequences for her actions, and her failure as a leader. But the next part of that is that the stress and the sort of zero defect mentality that they had at Humanity Health Group was just terrible. Like, I already told this story about this person who administered the wrong psychometric test for a person who had a neurological condition, and that required the expertise of a neuropsych. Like, it's that that person then had to flee the organization because the heat would be on them that they made the mistake and not their manager for not appropriately directing the intervention, and telling the junior psychologists what they needed to have done. Right? They're junior psychologists. They make mistakes. They're learning. You're meant to be chaperoning them. If you can't chaperone them, then you shouldn't be a psychologist, because that's an essential skill to be a citizen in the profession, is that you train new people. If you don't have the skills to train new people, then you shouldn't be part of the profession, because that's what citizenship in the profession entails. Anyway, 1 second. And is that there's never an opportunity for one of these managers to acknowledge that they've made a mistake. And they often make terrible mistakes. So there was this problem, but the worst behavior was by a man called Fred Sashini, who is just a straight up psychopath. He is a textbook psychopath, man. And what he then did is that he mobilized the employer unions. It was him and Amanda Mazzoni, because those two were very close friends. They mobilized the employer unions against me, so I couldn't get work. And it wasn't because of any child safety issue. Like, that hadn't played out yet. What happened is that they did this because they thought that, like, I was just useless, I guess, because I'd lost so many jobs. But it wasn't that at all. It was because I'd been abused at those jobs. Like, and having to deal with the previous abuse from these incredibly self-important people, and they kept asking me to do illegal things. And I suppose one of the worst things about Humanity Health Group, and it's just corporate healthcare in general, is that they don't seem to realize that you're dealing with a profession. Like, you're dealing with professionally trained people who have ethical standards, who are meant to have a responsibility for that client, and that's on the individual practitioner. So when we have these client lists, they're not the organization's clients. They can't ever be. And that's why, and the legislation, you can't do non-competes it's just not possible in healthcare. It would violate all of the fucking rights of that responsibilities that a healthcare practitioner has as part of their profession. So they're not enforceable. And I specifically had this written into my contract before I got there, so they knew. So I've also had this issue with Sarah Samuel trying to hog and keep her clients, but they've never been her clients. Those are free people. The NDIS is meant to be about choice and control. They get to choose where they go to. And on top of that, I had it specifically put in my contract through emails with HR that I'm like, they're not going to stop me getting employment at any other place. They're not going to do weird shit like this thing with the clients. And then they did. So they violated their own employer contract. And they've just been terrible throughout the whole thing. Now, like, again, the amount of silliness I'm going to have to deal with if I return to work is obnoxious. I shouldn't need to deal with it. I should be able to legally know my situation, and I should be able to sell myself as a media personality. There's no legal reason why I shouldn't be able to do that, right? It just seems to be that there's been people who have had power through the corporations, because my case has just been a very overt case of the corporations having control of our courts, our police systems, all of it. Because they've been able to maneuver around to remove my rights, stop me from being able to protest them, and force me back into working within the profession where I provide value for one of these fuckers. I'm not saying every employer is terrible. I'm saying that the people in the NDIS sure seem to be. It seems to, like, the way these markets have been engineered. Capitalism is not about free markets. It's about people with power being able to get a sufficient amount of power in the market through employer organizations and through monopolies. They are then able to define how the rest of the game is played. And I'm worried that has happened with the provision of services in the NDIS. And because there aren't enough, the NDIS is so overwhelmingly complicated to deal with that it requires specialization by practitioners to be able to interface with it. And because of that, we're never able to the free market does not provide an increase in efficiency for the service of participants. It provides an opportunity for capitalists to abuse vulnerable people and gain monopolies and be able to dictate terms to government because they provide all the service. It's a bad situation, and Sarah Samuel is a poster child for it, and she needs to be remembered as that. And her, similar to Lieutenant William Kelly, I think her behaviour in this situation is something which needs to be remembered as a case of poor management and leadership in healthcare, and is studyable as a case study. All right, have a lovely day, everyone.